Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Saturday, March 8th, 2025, and today's topic is going to be drawing profiles, but today it will be about shading techniques. I'm just going to call it that. Basically, you can think of it as inking, I suppose, because I'm using pen and ink, or rendering, or detailing. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day, and I use timers to stay focused and to build a habit. And I'll start a 10-minute timer, but today I'm going to take my time because if you've followed along, so I'll post a link to previous 2 videos. There is a methodology to all of this. I think that it's really helpful to have a methodology and to have a process, because like the cool ideas and like the inspiration and everything, in my experience, I'm not able to really control that. It kind of comes and goes. So like, for example, like different characters that kind of show up. But what I can control is the methodology and like the habits and stuff like that. And I'm just going to call it shading because you can also think of it as like light and dark or light and shadow. In the initial stage, like the first step is the sketch. So I'll just kind of maybe work on this one right here. Once there's kind of like a look, and that's just because, yeah, like that's like the intuition part. Then yeah, like the first step is the sketch. The next step was still the sketching, or the next video that I made was still sketching. So like I still consider all of this sketch. Now I'm going to keep it in the sketchbook and I'm going to keep it a sketch. So I don't mind the construction lines and everything. Like these are still preliminary or exploratory kind of sketches and stuff, kind of looking for different characters and everything. So when you're doing these sketches, you can set it up however you want. I mean, if you're warming up, you can just draw in like a mannequin or a stick figure or basic forms and stuff. I would recommend it. Kind of get something going. Then you can see like there's starting to be some light and shadow, and I kind of did that just to have something to look at. And that's what I'll go over today. It's kind of like the idea behind it. Now, the whole idea of light and shadow sort of deserves its own, or several videos. I actually just did one kind of recently called Form and Value. So once you get to this part, so this is going into light and shadow, heading into like the detail stage. A lot of this is just from my own experience, because what happens is that with each of these stages or steps that I'm talking about, what happens is that in my experience, I'll get lost and I'll wonder at what point, like where exactly, like it's for troubleshooting basically, because you're wanting to have a successful drawing or painting. And so I would ask myself, like, at what point is it going off track? So for example, is it like the sketch? Is it like the construction? Because the sketch is really about the shape. Like, is the shape incorrect? And the shape is coming from proportion. That's why you have a shape. It's because it's the distance of like the different lines and stuff. You want to know, like, is that the part that's not good? The next thing would be for the light and shadow, meaning, is it reading? Because, so just to kind of get into like the shading techniques. So there's different ways to approach it. You can decide to keep everything pretty flat. Now, since this is a sketch, since I'm just going to kind of keep it in here as like a sketch or like a study or something like that, I'm not going to worry about like the construction lines, and maybe I'll just go in and kind of initially lay in a tone. That could be, that's like the local value of that. Maybe that's moving into adding, so that's like light and dark is what I mean. Because under certain light, like let's say that that's dark hair, under certain light, like that would be the highlight or the light. And it just depends on the lighting. Sometimes it would be like this. You could leave this, so let's work on this one. So if I want the hair to be gray or silver or white, you can see that you would leave that open, because basically you're comparing this to like the face, for example. Is the hair lighter than the face? Same with this. It depends on the style, of course. So if you could go for a more outline look. So at this point, I'm just working off of the sketches that I've already done. And yeah, in the other videos you can see, for example, at what point did I use reference, at what point did I just kind of like make stuff up, and also how, like when and how did I do it, like what was the thinking behind it. But at this point, you don't really rush at the detail stage, because the drawing is here. Like it's already drawn. Also, sometimes you can go in with the white paint. Like I have a white paint marker, so you can see that here. Used it here, and so that's the other thing too. It's like you can use that. You can use different types of pens. Like, so once you kind of have like a character, basically, once you have a character, then you can start to define the character. And again, I consider this preliminary stuff, so that one, I like it to be kind of sketchy, because later I can understand what I did when I'm wanting to look at this again and also develop, maybe have ideas for another character. So you can keep the light and dark kind of simple like that, and also just sort of explanatory. You're using it to sort of focus and define the shapes. You can explore different, like this is a ballpoint pen, so you can play around with different lighting. And this is just based upon, the layout of the page, because it's not only just for the character design, and also like the technique and everything, and plus we were learning about how to draw profiles, so that's like studies. But then there's also things like, for example, by doing this kind of thing, like kind of spontaneous like layouts like this, you can see where it can give you ideas about, because for me, like I also want to draw comics, so it gives me ideas about layouts of like a panel or something. I'm gonna turn her into like a queen. That's what she looks like. So as far as the idea of like the shading technique, you can see that, one, I would be gradual about it. I mean, I wouldn't, at this point with like the details and stuff, I would just kind of the drawing is already done. And like come back to it and stuff. Sometimes the construction turns into the construction lines turn into a design. What else can we go over? Part of it is also just kind of filling in the details, like just because like the drawing is here. Now this guy has this is kind of a mix of genres a little bit, but that's okay. Part of it is just using the construction lines, just kind of covering it up. You can keep the shading pretty basic, like simple. I think like this is a little complex. I mean, I can kind of go over it a little bit here. So one thing is I like to challenge myself by using pen and ink. Like I didn't use any pencil on this page. You can overwork it, like definitely. So you kind of have to decide certain things. So for example, like is the hair going to be light? Let's just kind of keep it light. And then in that case, some of the way it's drawn sort of implies the lighting. So for example, you can keep it kind of outlined and it won't really matter. You just kind of outline the shapes. And part of this is wanting to have a character. And then once you have like a character, then you can draw it again. You have something to look at. So for example, if I were to draw this character again, it would be easier to draw it if I leave it like this versus very dramatic lighting if I want to know like the proportions and everything. As far as like hair, I just work on like the simple shape and then use the highlights and the shadows to kind of like, for example, like right here to sort of show like the hair is sort of like drawing the profile itself. There's sort of like the big shape and then you have the like the smaller shapes. Probably needs a video like unto itself. And it also depends on like the color of the hair. So let me look for maybe right here. If you didn't want it to like be dark, a few things you could, again, this is for the sake of the page. You could, if the hair is going to be light, make the background be dark. So part of this, so you could have the hair be light that way. Again, part of this is because of the layout, because that has like a certain look to it. So I might want to that's the main thing I wanted to go over. Basically, once you get this far, is really about looking at like the design of stuff. So for example, like the wrinkles, I like to be pretty like stylized about it. So you can just do like play around with the shapes of like the wrinkles. For beards, same thing. You kind of decide what color you want it to be, and part of that is either the character, you have something in mind, or you're just kind of going off of like the page. Or these characters that are emerging, I have sort of a vague idea, because I do have a lot of characters anyway, like that I want to, that are in the story, that I want to design. And I find that I can't really force it. Otherwise, it's not like convincing to me. But yeah, I was saying about the beard, like, yeah, you kind of have to decide the shape of it, and also the color affects things. So yeah, I'll do some more videos, of course, but that was kind of, I wanted to wrap up, so this will be like the third video. But yeah, if the hair is light, you want to be sort of sparing with it, like the highlights or the shadows. So there's some parts where you can just use like the white marker or white paint. So don't be afraid to do that, especially if you're using a pen. I mean, if you really want to clean up the lines, you can. You can just paint over it. So yeah, I think that'll be it for today. Thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine, and if you like these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it, and until next time, keep on sketching.